Hello and welcome to Minehead. Now, railway locomotives usually provide television presenters with endless opportunities for steam-based puns. However, you'll be delighted to know I can't think of any. So, instead, I'm just going to ask you this simple question. What on earth went on the Tour of Britain yesterday? The day began in Newtown with Greg Henderson wearing the leader's jersey for Team Sky, but that was about all that went to plan for them. A break soon got away, and with Cameron Meyer leading the charge, got established. But Sky kept the move in check. Till Black Mountain reared its ugly head. Meyer led over the windswept top, and then Tony Martin and Michael Albacini started to fly off in pursuit. By Swansea, they caught him, and on the brutal Constitution Hill, Albacini hit the front and never looked back.
Look at that, the victory salute, the clenched fist. The winner of the stage here is Michael Albacini.
Champagne and smiles and a word from a proud mayor.
For Swansea and for the people of Swansea, they've been delighted to see this here. I know the road's been closed, but to see the organisation here has been fantastic. And I know that the people of Swansea are delighted to see so many people here and such a wonderful time.
Yes, indeed, it was dramatic stuff. Dean Downing, you've had a night to sleep on it, and presumably also you've been chatting to your brother. What's he been telling you?
Yeah, I gave Russ a call last night. Eventually got through to him. He's rooming with Greg Henderson, so they was chatting seriously last night.
What about?
They lost the remote control for the television. And that's all the serious chat he would give me.
Excellent. Well, we'll have a bit more insight than that, hopefully, in a minute or two. But it matters not a jot what we say about it. Let's hear directly from the men who really matter.
It was a difficult one to call, to be honest. I don't think on the climb, when it split on a climb, there was no information coming back. So it kind of put, from Stephen de Jong's point of view as a sports director, kind of put him under a bit of pressure, really, because, you know, there was no information as to what was going on ahead, so it was a difficult one to call.
The attack on the downhill was a bit of surprise for me also, and of course we need a little bit of luck to, you know, they're going to catch the break, and then Alba, he could go in the final, so everything worked out fine.
Out of the Columbia team, you've got 2 or 3 guys who can obviously, you know, Pinotti and Albacini and Martin, Tony Martin, strong guys, you know, but in fairness, I think Greipel and Mark Renshaw in this terrain might struggle a little bit, and so that'll leave them down to 3 to try and control the race. So, you know, you'd be a little bit vulnerable there, so we'll try and capitalise on that. So it's like anything else, as long as you're still standing, you've still got a chance, and I don't think you can throw the towel at any point. You just keep on going, you know, it's bike racing.
It's a tough course here, it's only 6 riders, so it's quite difficult to control the race, and with all the crosswind, the rain, everybody getting tired, and before I start to blame Sky about their tactic, I better see how we survive today.
Yeah, it was interesting stuff, and Dean, it was very interesting to hear Dave Brailsford essentially admitting to Sky's mistakes so far.
Yeah, the last couple of stages they've made a few mistakes which have cost them the race lead. So, yeah, interesting analysis from Dave Brailsford.
Now, he also blamed the lack of team radio for the lack of information coming up to Bradley Wiggins about that gap back to Henderson. But a rider of Wiggins' experience, perhaps he could be expected to read the race situation a little bit more instinctually.
Yeah, these are the world's best riders we're talking about here. So if they can't read a race, you know, in that sense, then, you know, they need to, you know, take a look at that.
Yeah, absolutely. Both Brian Holm there and Dave Brailsford, though, are keen to stress this isn't over and that something could get shaken up today, particularly with these 6-man teams, which are so hard to organise.
Yeah, the 6-man team is a big issue. It makes it so hard to control a race. And today's stage is up and down all day. There's lots of categorised climbs, but also lots of uncategorised climbs. So riders like Mark Renshaw, as a pure sprinter, may struggle to do the full work for the HCC Columbia team.
Absolutely. Well, let's have a look at today's stage in more virtual detail. Here's the stage map. Stage 4 is quite simply the daddy of them all. Almost the longest and certainly the toughest. Up onto Exmoor, down again, back up and over this time before hitting the wall at Peak Hill, and the not unchallenging final 40k towards the finish in Teignmouth. Narrow roads, frightening gradients, and the odd stray cow. Somerset and Devon are places to visit to get your feet wet, your kite in the air, your castle built, or just your hat trick. Oh, and there's plenty of bikes too. Now, of course, I speak from a little personal experience here because 9 days ago I was one of the 1,000-odd souls who actually rode the route of today's stage. Rain, raw nerves and riders. The prostate cancer charity Tour Ride had two aims: to raise money and awareness for the charity and to give the likes of you and me the chance to test ourselves on a real stage of the Tour of Britain alongside the pros.
Get Richard on telly, he's supposed to be at work.
It's a side of the sport that's growing a heck of a lot at the moment as well, and it's great to see one like this that's supporting such a great charity. It's a challenge to you as an individual or to groups of people, and I think that's the beauty of rides like this.
Well, the weather's a little bit disappointing, I must admit, but I'm sure we'll make the best of it, eh?
Yeah! Woke up this morning eating breakfast and this happened, so it should be right, won't spoil the fun.
I believe it's 100 miles, I believe it's all like that, and then every time I talk to my mates who I'm riding with, it kind of expands. Apparently it's 110 miles, something like that, and I'm not looking forward to a single mile of it at the moment. Right, let's get this done, get home, have a shower, get to the pub. That enticing pint, though, was a long way off for us all as we set off in the morning gloom. Further down the line, a familiar face was about to tackle the shorter 70k challenge.
Well, I'm supporting prostate cancer charity just because I'm trying to raise awareness of the disease, particularly amongst the Afro-Caribbean community, because their incidence of it is 3 times higher than anybody else.
10 miles in, my bike seized up. An hour and 3/4 later, I was back on the ride. All right, so I am the last but one rider on the Tour Ride now, officially. There's only one person behind me and he's about to catch me up. There he is over there. The bike has been kind of fixed by Andrew over there. He's done a good job, but I don't know if it's going to last for long, so I'm going to try and ride across to my team who is somewhere up on Exmoor now and see if I can catch up with them. Strung out ahead of me, riders of all shapes, sizes, ages and abilities were feeling the highs and the lows and streaming across the finish line in Teignmouth.
What a beautiful day. It's been a fantastic ride, beautifully well organised. Does it raise awareness of prostate cancer? Yeah, absolutely.
Congratulations.
Yes, she is.
That was a lot of fun. Well, I did it. That's all. These boys helped me. That's Chris there, Steve, the skipper, and Matt, my mate. Did it. 170 something, 110 something else, and lots of that, and lots of that, and wind and rain and everything, and piece of cake. I don't know what the fuss is about. Christian, about 5k to go, right? Just outside Dawlish, kicks uphill very violently, right? That's your launch pad, okay? And then it's downhill all the way to the finish, all right? Just take it from me, bit of an insider tip. Right, okay. Let's find out how the pros really get on now. Let's join your commentators, Hugh Porter and Graham Jones.
This is the start of stage 4 of the Tour of Britain, Minehead to Teignmouth, a distance of 106 miles. And on paper, it looks the toughest. There are 3 first-category climbs for the riders to negotiate. And really, Graham, what was your thinking behind designing a course as hard as this?
Well, it comes down to comments from last year that generally they thought the Tour was a little bit too easy and it needed a couple of big stages. And I've just tried to put in what I thought would be the big stage of the Tour this year.
Well, this really is going to be a stinker of a stage, isn't it? The first climb comes Leip Hill, and that's only 7 miles into the contest. As we're looking at Michael Albacini here, what a stormer of a ride he had, sealing the victory over the top of Constitution Hill in Swansea. And the strength of his team, it's going to take a lot of cracking, isn't it?
It is. I mean, it's a top team. It's almost what you would call their A team that's in here, apart from Mark Cavendish and maybe 1 or 2 others, but it is a really very strong team.
We just got a glimpse of a rider who might just be keen to chance his hand today, and that's Dan Martin, the man that won the Tour of Poland, and this kind of course will certainly suit him, as we have a little attack already beginning to form off the front. And that is the Dutch rider Ronan van Zandbeek, riding on the Skill Shimano team, and he's got the young Irishman trying to go with him, Phil Lavery, representing Ann Post. But you can see right at the head of the main peloton there, the rider from Garmin, and that looked like Dan Martin.
It did, and despite the sort of tough stage ahead. It looks like the riders are already attacking right from the start, so they're not holding, the stage's not holding any fears for the moment.
Well, the weather forecast said we could expect rain later, and already it's beginning to fall as Dan Martin hits the front here, and he looks in a mean, determined mood. He's nowhere on the overall classification. Martin is around 20 minutes behind, so he may well profit from a course as hard as this today.
Well, we already saw him trying an effort yesterday early on in the stage, and I knew that the fact that he was well down overall, that he was going to chance his arm at some time.
And he's got good form, Dan Martin. That looks a little bit like Christian House to me as well, from the Rafa Conda Sharp squad, just in the wheel of Lavery. So 5 riders already beginning to distance themselves off the front of the main field, and this is very early on in the stage.
Yeah, it's going up to the climb of Wedham Cross before they turn very sharp left, and they do go up to the summit of Live Hill from there.
Saxa Bank have also got representation here, but we can catch a glimpse of another rider trying to bridge, and at the moment the main peloton do not seem concerned.
No, well, they're probably just keeping their powder dry at the moment. The roads are wet, and the rain clouds have been threatening for a while, and I think it's going to be very surprised if we actually get a dry stage today.
Dan Martin keeps looking across, doesn't he, as much as to say, come on, we want to keep this pace high. There's that rider trying to bridge, so this will make the group up to 6. And with this first category climb coming so early, Live Hill, this could be quite a killer blow early on in the stage.
Yes, it could, and also we've got very sharp, fairly nasty little descent after this one. It's very narrow roads, and it's certainly a road that will suit a smaller group rather than a big peloton. They get 40 seconds already.
40 seconds, that's a nice working advantage, isn't it? And that, of course, could play into the hands of these riders when they get onto the foot slopes of the climb. Well, Russell Downing is amongst the leading group there. In fact, Russell Downing is at the back. He was that lone rider that came across the gap. Well, I was talking to his brother Dean the other day, and he said this is the kind of day also that Russell would like to have a go.
Yeah, the other rider there also is Jaroslav Maric of Team Saxo Bank.
So, nice little group here formed, and none of them are a threat to the yellow jersey. Similar situation that we had the other day. 58 seconds already established.
Yeah, and I think they've got a good chance of sort of opening the gap a little bit more before we get to the top of this climb.
Well, we're just about to start it, Graham. There is the sign on the right, and we're going to get an idea who the strong riders are amongst this breakaway group. A lot more action to come, believe me. We'll take a break. Welcome back, and the leading group are well into this climb now. It's a 7-kilometre long ascent, and Russell Downing, Christian House and Dan Martin, the 3 riders on the front of the group. 49 seconds then the advantage.
Well, we can see that by the peloton stringing out that they have started to chase this breakaway down, and there's been an increase in the pace of the peloton.
Interesting to see who is doing the chasing at the front of the field. HTC Columbia with the yellow jersey are likely to be taking a closer order, but this is the man at the moment that's trying to distance himself from the rest of the breakaway riders, and that's Dan Martin. He really does look like a man determined today.
Well, he has obviously heard that maybe the peloton have decided to chase the breakaway down, and he's decided this group's not going fast enough for him.
Patrick Sinkovic trying to just dance his way clear of the field. Rides on the ISD team, and he has actually forged a little break there.
Yeah, there's a gap of about 50 metres just opening. 1 or 2 other riders there, probably about 6 riders just following his wheel.
So we've got a situation here now. Martin at the front, who's looking back to see if anybody's going to come up to him. Then we've got the remnants of the group he's left, and this is the chasing group behind, just about going to come up to make the junction. Now then, it'll be interesting to see, as I said, the composition of that group, because we expect HTC Columbia riders to be there looking after the yellow jersey. So this first climb is doing a lot of damage, weaving across the road. Nobody seems to want to take on the pace setting, and Martin, of course, is continuing to go further clear.
I think they're all just assessing who's in this breakaway at the moment, and we'll just see if anybody does decide to accelerate and think this is a right move.
It is all about who are the danger men, isn't it? Now this is Patrick Sinkovic, who's starting to just go clear. He's been chased down by one of the Vacon Soleil riders. Vacon Soleil having a very good Tour of Britain, but Martin looks very strong. Sinkovic here again, getting a shot of him. The man has had a lot of good performances to his credit in the past.
Yes, he's looking good there, and he's not really worried about anybody coming through to join him, join the pacemaking.
And just like Dan Martin, who has found a rather unusual position for his sunglasses.
I was just thinking the same thing, actually.
Maybe he's going to pop them in his pocket, or they generally tuck them at the back of the helmet, don't they? But now the chasers are down to 5. So this climb is forcing all the riders onto the back foot. And the weather conditions, well, it's getting worse, isn't it?
Yeah, Sinkovic has just got across to Dan Martin. Approximately, it's only about 200 metres from the top of the climb.
So a nice bit of climbing there then by Sinkovic. And now Martin will be pleased with that. We've got a third rider as well trying to come across.
I think that's one of the Vacon Soleil riders.
Looks like it, yeah. So dribs and drabs, this front group are forming. Now then, are they going to continue, and will they be allowed to continue? It's all about how much advantage they're given, and HTC Columbia will dictate this.
Yeah, they've obviously got a very good, they're in a very good position with Albacini in the gap, and just gone through there. Sinkovic that takes that King of the Mountains points from Martin. 10
points for him. Martin coming over second now. It's going to be interesting to see if they persist, but there are more riders coming across, and there's a way to go in this stage, and these descents will need a lot of caution. Greasy, and particularly on the bends. There's the result confirmed for you. Hoogeland. Now that's interesting. He's starting to take points back off Richie Port. Now then, that's going to put the King of the Mountains under pressure, and Port will be aware of that.
On the descent from the first climb of the day, Dan Martin and Patrick Sinkovic have been joined by 8 others, including the yellow jersey. And as that group turns for the first sprint at Blue Anchor, Vacon Soleil's Borit Bozic goes off the front to take out the points. Shortly after that, he is then joined by 4 others, including Dan Martin and Sky's Matthew Heyman.
And you're looking here now at the leading group, just about ready to start climb number 2, and it's another first category affair. Rayleigh's Cross. Is this as hard as the first one?
It's hard. It's probably harder than the first one, but it's different than the first one. Whereas the first one was a fairly even gradient up all the way to the top. This one goes up in 3 stages. It climbs, descends, climbs again, and then the last third part of this climb is at 17%.
And that time split, 2:40, is back to the peloton. So the race is actually in 3 groups now, and these are the leaders at the front. Bozic and Carrera both riding for Vacon Soleil. Heyman is there for Sky, and there's also an Italian, Miranda, on the ISD team. And at the head here of the chasing group are the HTC Columbia squad, and that is of course to be expected.
Well, they're in this chasing group. I think it's about looks to be about 30 riders in that chasing group, and I think they've got 4 riders in there: Grabsch, Greipel, Tony Martin and Albacini, the yellow jersey.
And it would appear that Martin has been given the task of always looking after the yellow jersey.
We certainly did a lot of looking after him yesterday and did a fantastic job in preparing the ground for Albacini's attack.
And here we are back with the leaders. This is Gianluca Miranda on the right, and then starting to come through is one of the 2 riders from the Vacon Soleil team. Good team here, Vacon Soleil. They've got Wouter Poels and Johnny Hoogeland, and they're both very good climbers, but I can expect the pace to be maintained from that group behind by HTC, so you can expect that team to keep the gap pegged.
Well, they obviously have to, because Bozic is only at 1 minute 41 seconds, so they can't afford to let this group get too far ahead.
And that's why they always call it chess on wheels, don't they? Because a move develops, and if the permutation of that move is not right, then of course the big guns begin to whip the pace up and then neutralise that break so that they all come back together again. But the brace of riders from Vacon Soleil are trying to go ahead here.
They're certainly an aggressive team. They've been in the action every day, and certainly expect to see plenty from them today and over the next 2 or 3 days.
And Dan Martin, of course, is in the mix as well. Martin from the Garmin team, and Garmin haven't done anything special so far in this race, but it looks as though we're going to get a certain amount of regrouping here.
Well, we can see all the team cars have come up to the front now, and I think the gap between the peloton is going further back as Dan Martin attacks.
and he's got Bosic with him for company. It's a nice rider to have to share the workload, and it's Martin at the moment that is the instigator of all these attacks. But they aren't too far ahead, are they? And that looks like Richie Port to me on the inside as well.
Yes, definitely the shape of Richie Port, and you see this group behind is still splintering, and there's a lot of attacks.
But Martin it is, still on the front, and he is of course playing a nice tune today, and the tune of course is I'm going to stay right here at the head of affairs. Nice move. Martin finding the course very much to his liking. Crowd massing ahead. Despite the inclement weather, we've had huge crowds all along the route.
Yeah, the rain has been coming sideways, and I think there's 2 leaders now just approaching the summit of Rally's Cross.
They are. These are the final meters of this second climb. Who's going to take the points? 10, remember, for first over, 8 for second. And it is Martin that picks up the 10. Second Bosic, that's the 8. It'll be interesting to see who picks up the points further back, because Hugeland, remember, got 6th in the first climb to narrow the gap on Richie Port.
Well, this is Miranda just making the pace at the front of this group, and obviously one of the riders there from HTC just struggling a little bit at the back. That's Greipel.
Yeah, Greipel, of course, is the big sprinter. He won stage 1 into Blackpool. It's the case with the sprinters. They often suffer, don't they, when they come to the climbs. Over the top, third there was Matthew Heyman of Team Sky. So Heyman, who was the Commonwealth Games gold medalist for the road race in Melbourne back in 2006, is going quite well. But you can see just how hard it is with the contrasting styles here.
Yeah, that's Lavery just struggling a little bit at the back there, but they're not too far, and if they're fairly close to the top of this climb, there is quite a lot of flat roads across the top for several kilometres.
We saw riders in difficulty at the back of that group, didn't we? And those 5 that we just saw crossing the summit have gone away from them.
Yeah, as I said, though, that the flatter roads for quite some time, and then we descend off this hill, that I'd expect this group to come back a little bit of a regroupment.
Still a long way to go, and we've said that this is going to be the toughest of all the stages. Well, here's the remnants of the chase group, and the main field, well, they are miles behind, and there's still 76 miles to go after this climb.
There is a long way to go after this, and a lot of climbs. It's not just the King of the Mountains that are categorised, it's forever up and down all day.
There it is, confirmed for you then. Martin getting the maximum points from Bosic, Heyman and Carrera from Italy.
Yeah, I just noticed quite a few. I'm just trying to recognise some of the jerseys in that group behind. It looks like there's 3 riders from Motorbike Marshals past us. It'll be interesting to see which riders are in this group.
Well, we'll take another break.
Welcome back. Filthy conditions by now on Exmoor. Dan Martin was caught on the descent from the second climb of the day, and the yellow jersey group came back together. Then Martin attacked again. Matt Heyman joined him, and they were shortly after that joined by Johnny Hogeland. That break of 3 then built a lead which put Hogeland in virtual yellow. The trio then swept up the remaining sprint points at Honiton, and shortly after that at Sidmouth, just before the frightening slopes of Peak Hill.
And they've got about 30 miles left after Peak Hill. Now this climb is just shy of 2 kilometres, but it's just like a wall.
It is. It's 1 in 5 in parts. They're on the lower slopes at the moment. It's not too steep here, but once you just go into the trees, it really does kick up.
So the 3 riders in the lead here, Heyman, Martin and Hugeland, beginning to gather themselves, ready to tackle that. But right on the front is the HTC Columbia squad, who are doing a marvellous job defending that yellow jersey for Albacini.
Well, they're in a similar situation to the earlier break, haven't they? Back on Soleil have put a rider in there who's a danger overall, and they have to keep the pace high.
And of course the team of HTC Columbia will want to try and pull this group back, because Hugeland is the race leader on the road. He started 1:46 behind the yellow jersey, but now he's got a lead of 35 seconds.
Yeah, that's right. They've got to chase it, but what they haven't got to do is blow their strong riders apart on this climb. They've just got to go steady. There's still quite a long way to go to the finish, so they need to keep Grabsch and Greipel in that group.
And of course the Dutchman has gone very well on the climbs as well. He's narrowed the gap in the King of the Mountains to Richie Port. He only trails him by 5 points, and he's in the first 3 here, so he's got a good chance of getting level with the Australian for that title.
Well, this climb's so steep that if he's got the legs, he will pick up some points from the chasing group.
They're already looking laboured and they haven't got to the toughest part. Martin sitting in the saddle there. He's been in the thick of it ever since the start, but he still looks as though he's got plenty of strength in those legs. It's Martin on the left, Heyman there at the front, and just to the right is Hoogerland. Very talented bike rider, Hoogerland, and he is carrying the hopes, of course, of Vakon Soleil at the moment.
Still on the lower slopes of the climb, believe it or not. The gap now 2:06, so the gap has come down a little bit.
It has. This is all, of course, due to the work being done on the front by the HTC Columbia, and you can see them there. What a strong team they've got, and they're all, of course, prepared to sacrifice themselves for their yellow jersey leader, Albacini.
Well, this is where the climb really kicks up and hits the really steep part, 1 in 5, and lots of crowds. It's thousands of people on the climb today.
And there's the British version of the Devil, and of course we're accustomed to seeing the Devil on all the major tours.
And we're just about to go into the canopy here. It's almost like going up through a tunnel. It only really opens out when we get to the summit of the climb.
And what a glorious shot there of Babacan Bay, just behind the chase group. And still on the front, HTC Columbia, as the 3 leaders are now becoming laboured. And you are right, Graham, this is a brute, a savage climb.
It is. I have ridden it myself a few months ago, and like I say, I wasn't in a very good state at the top.
Yeah. So I'm just expecting this chase group, which is quite sizable actually, to start to fragment. I'm sure that riders are going to try and get...
Yeah, I think you can see the fact that they were bunched across the road. They're going up it at a reasonable pace, but not too hard just to split it up, because, as I say, Albacini does want his teammates there over the top.
Heyman, the Australian, seems to be the man with the better legs there as they're getting close to the top. Hello? We've got them all out today, haven't we?
It's a bit cold for that, but I've seen better sights.
Well, this race has attracted all different forms of costume as they've come out to support them. But Heyman is a big lad, so he's obviously got the greater problem here.
Yeah, riding 3 abreast as well, so there's nobody really making the pace. And,
gone back up, yeah, 2 minutes and 50 seconds. So that means that on the road, the leader is Hoogerland by over a minute now.
Yeah, it's good. It's going to be interesting. We'll have to chase after this climb.
They've even marked up the fields as well. Support spilling over for the Tour of Britain everywhere we go.
Yeah, it's been fantastic on this stage, and masses and masses of school children out along the whole route.
And it's HTC Columbia still doing the driving on the front of the chasing group, and they will be aware of the fact that the gap has increased to over a minute.
They will, and the chase will be on in some style, I think, after this climb.
Hoogerland looks as though he was setting himself up to get the 10 points. He does. Hoogerland takes the 10 points. Martin gets the 8 and Heyman 6. And it'll be interesting to see how many points Richie Port picks up as he crosses the line.
Yes, it will, and it's going to be very close for the King of the Mountains. I don't think we've had a King of the Mountains competition that's been this competitive for a while.
We haven't. Hoogerland has got 19 then so far today. And that shot tells us just how hard it is. Look at that, they're laboured, aren't they, out of the saddle?
Yeah, but nobody's really making the pace. They still want to keep this group pretty much together to chase down that leading trio.
And it looks like Richie Port on the extreme right. He's obviously aware of the fact that he's got to get some points here, and first of that group would be very useful.
Yeah, but the leading three have got their heads down now. They're on the descent. It's a fairly straightforward descent.
And the roads on the descent look to be dry as well, so that's very good for them. If they'd have been wet, then they would have been sliding all over the place. But the crowd's here cheering the group on, and of course the severity of this climb, Graham, is about as steep as Constitution Hill, but of course the surface is different.
It's a little bit longer, but of course there's no cobbles, and it comes after 4 days of racing, so there's a lot of tired legs out there, particularly in the cold, wet conditions we've had the last 2 days.
And of course today conditions are better, because yesterday on Constitution Hill it was absolutely pouring down, and they were damp and they were cold. They've gone through rain today, but now the weather is beginning to improve. And of course let's not forget about the peloton, Graham. They're almost 20 minutes behind.
It is easily forgotten where the peloton are, but that's a long way off. Obviously most of those teams in that peloton have got somebody in front, and you quite often see when a group gets in front this large that the peloton just rides in. But they've got to be careful because of the time limit. But because of the size of that group, I think the commissaires may well show a little bit of leniency.
And it's 10% today of the winner's time.
And of course, that's not that much on a day like today.
Certainly is not. Now then, this is Richie Port on the right, and Port is going to sprint for the line. He's obviously aware of how close it's going to be between him and Hugeland, and a teammate of Hugeland from Vacansoleil reacted, but he reacted too late, and that was Poles. So Port finishing fourth gives him 5 points, and it means that Hugeland and Port have got the same points, 45 points each, in the King of the Mountains competition. That is very interesting. Right, we've got about 28 miles to go to the finish. Welcome back, and there's a problem here. The yellow jersey Albacini has punctured. His teammate Tony Martin has waited with him, so Martin will be helping Albacini back to regain that chasing group. But the leaders, it's down to 30 seconds now, so it looks as though they're going to get swept up.
Yeah, you would think so, but there may be a little bit of hesitation in that group now, the fact that Albacini, because it was the HTC Columbia team that were doing most of the work.
Dan Martin is on the front of the three that are clear, but we just got a glimpse of the chasers, and that 30 seconds has come down. 22, in fact.
Yeah, it looks like the days are numbered out front, and I think the main thing is just to see if Albacini can get back to that group.
And you look at the pain on the face of Dan Martin, and I think that tells you all, doesn't it? He has been on the attack all day, but it looks as though it's going to come to nothing.
Yeah, he's had a very tough day, and a very attacking day, and if he doesn't get the most aggressive rider, then I'll be very surprised.
And now he's gone away on his own, so Martin, he's still determined to try and nail his stage.
Well, he's making one big effort. He's seen the group coming up behind, and he's just trying to hold them off with just a few kilometres to go.
Well, Hugeland and Heyman have sat up. He can only hope that that group will be happy with the fact that Martin is so far down on general classification. Cursory look back, he has established an advantage, but for how much longer? Yellow jersey, he's just about to make the junction here at the back of the chasers, so Tony Martin, his teammate, has done a first-class job to help him.
He has. It's still tough along this run into the finish before the right-hander, and then it does start to go down, a little bit of a descent before they're running onto the seafront.
So he's got no teammates to help him here, Dan Martin. It's a total lone effort. 10 kilometres to go, 6 miles. It's a big ask.
It is, especially when you've got a group of this size chasing you down.
32 seconds though. He's still got some riding left in those legs. And you're looking at a class act here. He has decided actually not to ride in the World Championships down in Australia. He wants to focus on the concluding classic of the year, and that's the Tour of Lombardy. And he has got the kind of attacking style that would suit him.
Well, that's certainly a course that would suit Dan Martin, and I can imagine that you know, he probably is making the right decision by not going to Melbourne. It probably doesn't suit him, that course.
Cautiously taking the twists and turns, because once again this mizzle has started, and it's been on and off all day, and when you're running off dry and damp roads, that is the worst condition.
This is just a tricky little descent through Dawlish, but there is a nasty little climb coming out to the other side of Dawlish, and this where if he can hold the gap here, he may well just have a chance.
So it's Dan Martin still powering his way along at the front, the former Irish champion. Now then, at the gap, we've had a time split of 32 seconds, and he really is determined. He's been on the go all day, Martin, but you get the feeling that, well, they're going to come up to him.
Well, he's been out all day, and also most of the day they've been riding into a headwind here. That's why the pace of the overall pace for today's stage is a little bit down on what you would have expected it to be.
Now in Teignmouth, there's quite a few twists and turns before they take the right-hander to line up for the finishing funnel. So if he is still clear, that may well play into his hands.
Just a few motorbikes moving out there, which suggests that the group is coming up behind.
It is 30 seconds the gap, isn't it? And you are correct, they've been pulled out, the cars, and now Martin has been caught, and immediately we get an attack, and it looks like one of the riders from Vacansoleil. They've had a superb day today, haven't they, the team of Vacansoleil?
Well, they certainly deserve a victory if they do get one, and because they've been in all the right moves, and they've also not just been getting riders away, it's also been riders that are up there overall.
And there is Albacini, the yellow jersey, so he's recovered well from the chase after the puncture. And Richie Port was also there.
He was, 2 riders from Vacances-Soleil.
Concluding stages now of stage 4. We're approaching the midway point then of this 8-day tour. And all these riders now anxious to try and get clear to avoid the sprint. This is Richie Port, this talented Australian, and he has actually established a slender advantage.
They have, and it's about 1, 2, 3, 4, it's about 9 riders in this little group.
And we normally associate Richie Port with making efforts on climbs, and he's also a good time trialer, isn't he? Not trying to get clear in the closing stages, but he's been pulled back, and they're all together.
And there's definitely a gap open there. I can see Jack Bauer, the yellow jersey, is also in there.
Another attack forming here, and this is the Colnago rider, Pozzovivo, and they're inside the concluding 5 kilometres.
Yeah, but I think there's a little bit of a reaction from, he's sitting up, Richie Port, and Jack Bauer not wanting to go through either, so it's a little gap opening.
Well, can he profit from this? They're all looking at each other, and that gap is increasing.
It is. Richie Port just having a drink there, and it would be interesting to see who does actually take up the chase.
So it's rolling, isn't it, here on the approach to the finish in Teignmouth. And Russell Downing looks as though he's struggling a little bit here to stay on the pace of the chase group. Well, he's still persisting, this Italian, and the yellow jersey, Albacini, is looking across to see whether he's got any allies in this front group.
Well, one person who does seem to be still doing the work is Richie Port.
Well, you've got to start to speculate here on the finish if he comes down to a sprint. Vacances-Soleil have actually got 3 riders in contention.
They have, they're very strongly represented in this front group, but you can also see that the rest of that group is not too far behind either, so this could still come back together.
You're right, they keep crawling their way up, don't they? And that size of group increases all the time. But he's still just there, menacingly ahead, isn't he, this Italian? He's going to get pulled back, though. It's only a matter of time.
It certainly looks that way, and you can see from the helicopter shot just how hard this run into the finish is.
And it looks like Dan Martin is beginning to lose contact as well at the back. He's about 10 metres adrift. Hardly surprising with the amount of work he's put in today.
Yeah, it's Richie Port still doing a lot of work to bring this rider back.
And at the back, the Irish rider, I think that's Phil Lavrio as well, who was on the attack early on. Now, look at this, a reaction from Vacances-Soleil here. And this looks like Wouter Poels to me, who was the leader on the King of the Mountains on day 1.
Well, it's the perfect time to attack, just as the group's reacting and pulling the Italian back. He's gone, and this could be a really good move. He's got a little bit of a fast descent here into the last kilometre.
And once he gets into the twists and turns of Teignmouth, that will play into his advantage being on his own. There we are, 2 kilometres to go. I think that is a very positive move.
It is, and he's just got the descent now to 1 kilometre to go. Oh, that was a bit close.
Enthusiasm from the spectators at the side, and he actually ducked under the arm of that school lad.
Quick reactions after 106 miles in the saddle.
Unbelievable. Anyway, Wouter Poels, it is the man that's driving on here, looking for the stage victory in Teignmouth, and he's established a nice working gap.
Yeah, this is the rest of that, what was the original 30-plus man group.
And the Italian, who was slightly ahead earlier, is now tucked in at the back. He's going away here. This is nice.
Yeah, he took a quick glance over his shoulder just to see where the gap is, and a quick run round this bend before the left-hander at the Flamme Rouge, or the 1 kilometre kite.
Well, he's certainly teeing himself up here for a serious tilt at this stage victory, and giving the group the slip just before the 3 kilometre mark, wasn't it? Now he's come under the 1 kilometre pennant, and now he will swing towards the seafront and the finish, and that gap looks like a winning gap to me.
It certainly does. He's just got 2 or 3 little bends to negotiate before turning on to the long finishing straight.
So it's Wouter Poels here at the front, this Dutchman riding on the Vacances-Soleil team. And now he will take one of the sweetest turns of his career, because he'll be lining up for the run down the finishing straight. And there's a massive crowd here. They've been there all day waiting for the arrival of the riders here in the Tour of Britain.
Just turning right onto the seafront, and that gap looks as though it's a winning gap.
It is a winning gap, that, Graham. 300 metres to go. Nobody's going to catch the Flying Dutchman. Interesting to see who will get the gallop for second behind Poles. I think he can start to give us the victory celebrations. He's so far clear, but we can expect a superb sprint from the rest of the group behind. There we are. He's just straightening up the jersey. That's what they do in the professional game, and there is the victory salute. Now look at the charge behind, and he looks like another Vacansoleil rider to me. So we've had a double victory salute, and that was Borat Bozic coming over the line second, Koen de Court third, and the yellow jersey safely in seventh spot. Rest of the riders coming down the finishing straight. It's been a real tough stage today, and a good showing by Motorpoint Marshall's Pasta. 3 of their team coming across the line. They're well placed, but where are the peloton? It's going to be a long wait before they cross the line.
It will be, and just hope the crowd stays around to see them come in.
Well, Richie Port's had a cracking ride today, and so has Albacini, still in yellow. But the day belongs to the Vacansoleil boys. First and seconds, Wouter Pols wins the stage, Borat Bozic second. Look at this, they are happy, and why not? Can't get a better result than that.
The long climber's physique of Wout Poels, arms aloft and seeing the victory home after a day when Vacansoleil went on the charge. And the net result, a 1-2 for their team, Poels and Borat Bozic. Endurers Jack Bauer came in 4th place, Patrick Sinkovits in 5th, Richie Port in 6th, Greg Henderson did well to coast home 11th, losing only 15 seconds. And Motorpoint Marshall's Pasta will be delighted with their domestic hat-trick of riders who stuck around in that group of 30-odd. Big crowds in Teignmouth then to cheer home the Dutchman, just a second win in his 2 years as a pro.
We tried to attack the yellow jersey with Johnny and Bozic. We have 4 stages more, so maybe we can try something.
Johnny Hugeland, for so long in that break of 3, took the Mountains jersey from Richie Port and made up 4 seconds on the overall as he did it. The Tasmanian Devil, though, Richie Port, has been on the podium every day so far, and today was no different. He leads the sprint competition by 4 points from Greg Henderson. It was a race of 2 halves today, the main bunch, including one Bradley Wiggins, finishing just within the cut-off over 26 minutes down. A bit of a reshuffle up top in GC. Henderson drops 2 places to 4th, and Bozic picked up 9 seconds on the road. He's now in 3rd. Richie Port moves into 2nd at 1:28. Rob Partridge also moves up 2 places and remains the top placed Brit. But Michael Albacini becomes the first rider on this tour to retain the yellow jersey, and he's getting better at the champagne shot all the time.
After the first climb, there was a few riders, and I was just alone without teammates, so that was a point. I was thinking, maybe it's going to be a little bit hard today, but then we take the overview, we wait for our team. We don't get nervous when Hugeland went in the break, so I had the whole team together, and together we are really strong, so we can close the gap to the leaders, and I can defend my jersey.
Well, Dean, Wout Poels, and by the way, that is how you pronounce it, and Johnny Hugeland, what can you tell me?
Yeah, their team mechanic told me that Poels has been selected for the national squad, the national Dutch squad, for the World Championship, so he'll be happy with that.
Probably happier than Hugeland, who thought he would get the spot. And I have to say, Dean, there was a bit of a strange atmosphere between the two of them behind the podium.
Yeah, that's quite strange. I heard Johnny Hugeland was reserved, so maybe Wout Poels has taken his place.
Good day for Hugeland, nonetheless. Even better day for Michael Albacini.
Yeah, Albacini did a great ride today. I understand he had a puncture, and HTC Columbia worked brilliantly for their yellow jersey, and they survived, Brian Holm told me today.
Yeah, they've survived probably the hardest day, and a measure of how hard it was today. 5 riders abandoned and 1 more crashed out. Some big names amongst them. Marco Pinotti from Colombia. You know why he had to abandon?
Yeah, apparently he has serious sinus trouble, so he'll be on his way home tonight.
Yeah, and also Robbie Hunter from Garmin, he's gone home too. And what's the update on your teammate from yesterday?
Yeah, I'd just like to wish Darren Lapthorne, who crashed out yesterday, best wishes with a broken collarbone, so he's home tonight as well, but hopefully he's watching tonight, and best wishes, Darren.
Tough race, isn't it? Some of the riders have been complaining it's too hard.
Yeah, they've been complaining it's too hard, but maybe they should get a new job or something.
Yeah, absolutely. Can't have mine, and nor can you either. Well, tomorrow it continues on the Tour of Britain. Do join us then as we go from Tavistock to Glastonbury. See you then.